Open your eyes and look around. Open your eyes. Do you see the very things that you read about coming true? Don't you realize the moments are near? Correct yourself in your affairs. He has made it crystal clear. These are the signs of the time.
Assalamu alaikum. Sunnahfollowers, new class, stay tuned.
Signs of the times. Wake up in the morning, hands and feet get wet. My Lord, get wet, get wet. My Lord, wet. My Lord, wet. My Lord. Wake up in the morning, hands and feet get wet. Getting ready for our conversation, deep and in depth. Obligations are serious and need to be met. So I prepare so I won't forget. Go ahead and make a good intention. Yeah, yeah. You can write for some good things. Yeah, make a donation to the side and go from left to make it right. Just remember and don't lose sight. Jannah is the goal. Jannah is the goal. Jannah is the goal.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Just hang in with us. Inshallah, Dr. Ali will be joining in a few minutes. He just texted me. And mashallah, this is going to be a repeat of yesterday's class, because remember, yesterday we had some sound issues. So inshallah, Dr. Ali is going to repeat yesterday's lecture for us today, because it was so beneficial and it's something that we definitely need to talk about, because it goes hand in hand with what this whole premise is about, trying to maintain the identity of a Muslim living here in America. This is a problem. We're losing our children. We're losing our children every day, to the life of this world. Our children have taken on other identities. They become the part of the hip hop culture. They become part of the gangsta. We're living in a gangsta paradise, subhanAllah. So I'm really hoping that this lecture from Dr. Ali will be of benefit to everyone here. The children should be listening. I'm hoping that you guys have us turned on the big screen TV. Put us on the big screen TV so that the children can watch me live on channel Sunnahfollowers. Okay, so they can see, because Dr. Ali has videos and everything to help hold their attention here. And also for the parents, take notes. And any questions, this lecture is done live from our Zoom room. I have the Zoom room open so y'all can see, so I can see when he comes in too. This lecture is being done live from our Zoom room. And so if you would like to get on the microphone after Dr. Ali's lecture is over with questions, comments, suggestions, or whatnot, please join our Zoom room, www.sunnahfollowers.net. You guys know it. It's listed up there. Join the Zoom room and you can get on the mic and ask Dr. Ali any questions after the lecture or whatever, so because this is interactive. This will be interactive, and the topic is so intense. So many of you come to me with your questions and about the situation with your children and grandkids and great-grandkids. You raise them Muslim, but they end up taking on a different lifestyle altogether. They become part of the hip hop culture. My cats, I'm listening to my cats. They're fighting. You know, I tell you, cats, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said cats are like children, they're part of your family, boy, did he speak the truth. These cats I have are just ridiculous. They're worse than children, always in something, fighting, knocking things over, getting locked up in closets, locked in the bathroom, locked in cabinets. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, this lecture should be very informative. From what we could hear of it yesterday, it was good, the little bit that we could understand. So that's why he's going to repeat it just for us today, inshallah. So just give him a second to come in. He should be in about 5 more minutes. He told me he was running late, so give him till 10. This class was supposed to start at 9:45. He asked for 10, so that means 15 minutes. So he should be coming in a few minutes. And by the way, your children did very good. How many of you were here for the Sunnah Follower Kids program this morning? MashaAllah, those kids did amazingly. Because that book that we're studying from, Dunya, that is not a children's book. That's an adult book. And the children were able to everything and answer the questions with examples. MashaAllah. So that just goes to show, how Islam appeals to anyone who has common sense, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Because those children are able to follow along in that book and answer questions and understand what we're talking about. They understand how Islam is not just a religion, how it's a way of life. Did you guys hear the answers they gave? I asked them, how does Islam show us that it's a way of life? They said, subhanallah, by telling us what type of manners we should have, by telling us what type of behavior we should adapt in certain situations. They gave complete sentences. They gave actual examples, and they also gave the dalil. They quoted the hadiths with their answer. The children answered the way that I'm trying to get you adults to answer in class. So I was very impressed with those kids. May Allah bless them. May Allah keep them all upon Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ameen. Because I was really impressed, because that book is not a children's book. That's an adult book. Okay. And they really understand it. And you heard them say they enjoy it. They said, oh my God, Sister Layla, we love this book. We enjoy it. SubhanAllah. I was pretty impressed. Yeah, inshallah, mashallah. Yeah, just stick around. We'll be starting as soon as Dr. Ali comes in. He'll be in a few minutes, inshallah. And remember, guys, you can always join the Zoom room for after his lecture, for your questions and things like that, because this is specifically for you, specifically for everyone here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, D Live, LinkedIn, and X for you. All right. And he'll be right here in the Zoom room. So he'll be able to hear and everything. Yeah, the kids, they kept me smiling too. They did really good. I was pretty impressed, I have to admit. Pretty impressed. And you see how beautiful the girls look in their kimars. That's why I tell you guys, all of you with daughters, if your daughters are 7 years old and older, they should be wearing hijab every day. And they should be wearing abayas every day. The Prophet Muhammad said, teach your children the religion when they're 7, because 7 is the age of understanding. Make them practice it when they're 10. You do not want to wait till your daughters are puberty and think that you can get them to cover up. It's too late. They should be looking just like my beautiful darlings look on the Sunnah Followers Kids program. Those girls all wear hijabs and they wear abayas every day. They're all 7 years and older. So that way it's part of them. It's embedded in them. They would feel naked not dressing that way when they're puberty. And girls start their menses. They can start their period anywhere from the age of 9 up. You know, I had mine when I was 9. That's why I got married at 14. Oh, yeah. Mama was a rolling stone. Mama got married at the age of 14 because mama don't play. I wasn't going to bite the bullet of Shaitan. Oh, no. I'm scared of the hellfire. I got married at 14, and I was puberty at the age of 9. So girls get puberty at 9. Y'all better get these girls practicing their deen now. Teach them to cover up and have them praying so that when that menses come at 9, they ready. They already, you know, in the routine. And they can look at you and say, Mama, Papa, when I'm ready to be a rolling stone, get me married. Yep, that's the way you do it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sister Rockmo, where's Norto and them? Norto, Fame, where does Shuaib, isn't he in Kentucky? He don't know where he live. Is he in Kentucky? Norto. None of them people in here. Because I told Shuaib, I'm going to have to take a ride to meet him and Yusef while they're still babies. Because when they get puberty, I won't be able to get a hug from them. So I'm going to have to go down there to drive down there to Kentucky. It's just a 4-hour drive. So I can meet them. Get me a hug from Shuaib and Yusef. SubhanAllah. They are family? Okay. Because I asked him, I said, where do you live? He told me his city. I said, oh, okay. Is that in Kentucky? He said, I don't know where Kentucky is, but I'm in, and he gave the name of the city. I said, I think you down there in Kentucky. Yeah, I have to meet him and Yusef before they get puberty. Because when they get puberty, I won't be able to get a hug from them. SubhanAllah. So handsome. So smart. Okay, is that it? Okay, that's not him. Okay. Yeah, tomorrow, the sister's asking me about the classes tomorrow. Yes, my 6 o'clock class tomorrow. Mukhtar's doing his class tomorrow at 7. So the schedule's going to be changed around tomorrow like it was today. Inshallah, Mukhtar will do his class at 7 tomorrow. And then we have my class on the signs of the last hour. Y'all know I'm doing the signs of the last hour. That'll be tomorrow at 9 p.m. Yes. That's Sister Howard's son. Because, you know, I get him all mixed up. I know he's Rock. I told him he was Rockmo's sister. She was this. He said, no, she's my aunt. I said, oh, my God. Because he looks just like Rockmo. And then I said, and then he's Yusef's uncle. I'm like, oh my God, you Somalis, y'all got it going on. So that's Sister Hawa. So Sister Hawa is Shuaib's mother. Okay. Yes. So Sister Hawa, mashallah, may Allah bless her. I'm so proud of all of y'all. Yeah, I remember Hawa. Hawa's been coming here since she was a kid too. All of y'all. You know, I'm proud of all of my little Bantu girls. Y'all are all of you have made me proud. Y'all been coming here since y'all were little kids. And now you done got married and got kids of your own. I'm so proud of you. I really am. May Allah bless all of you. I mean, my little Shuaib with his little curly hair. His little curly hair. Okay, I see people coming in. None of them are Dr. Ali, guys?
No.
Okay. Wa alaikum salam, Brother Abdullah. Yeah, Dr. Ali's going to repeat the lecture for y'all today because of the sound issues. Yeah, so he's going to be repeating it. So he's going to be joining in a few minutes. Yeah, he's a real doctor. The little kid here asking, is he yeah, Dr. Ali is a real doctor. He works in the emergency room and he has a clinic. He works at a clinic. So, since COVID, the doctors have been pretty busy. Yeah, but he's coming in. You want to be a doctor too? Alhamdulillah. It's a lot of work, but you can do it. Oh, yeah.
Sister Layla, did you do your class? Did I miss it? Or you never did?
Which class? Yeah, I did my class today.
Oh, dang it, I missed it.
Yeah, this is Dr. Ali. He getting ready. We waiting on. He sent me a text. He's running a little late, but he'll be in a few minutes. He said 15 minutes, which would be 10 o'clock. So he should be coming in a few minutes. Now, y'all know I'm looking forward to this because although the sound was messed up yesterday, I can't wait to put this one out. And I'm going to watch it on my big screen TV. Yeah, Brother Hanif. By the way, sister, is Maisha here? Maisha, make sure you make shorts out of Brother Hanif's class. He broke down the difference between a wakil and a wali. And he emphasized that. So make sure you guys make shorts of Brother Hanif's class. Okay, there's Dr. Ali. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let me see. I see him. Let me cut off my video and give him moderator. Okay. There's my videos off. And let me set it up on speaker. There. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Dr. Ali. Okay, can y'all hear him?
Yeah.
Okay, now y'all take care of the sound because I'm getting ready to go on stereo. So y'all let him know when his mic and his camera and all that, because I won't be able to talk. I'm getting ready to go on stereo to stream.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll try to keep an eye on the all right. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. So this program, this is something that I've kind of been wanting to talk about for a really long time, and the impetus for this exact program was actually an incident that happened in the community in which I live in which we have typically one of the masajid, we have a Saturday night family program where we try to have an Islamic talk and followed by dinner, and usually try to get the families together and people can eat and the kids can play and hear something inshallah valuable. And so what happened not yesterday but the week before was that apparently a group of about 12 or so boys, teenage boys, that they decided during the lecture, that they were going to leave the masjid property and they were going to go across the street to an apartment complex. And somebody threw a brick at a window or one of the apartments, and so another kids took some pole. I'm not sure why, but he took a pole out of somebody's yard and ran away with it, and just being stupid boys is basically what they were doing. And but of course, something like this, not only could they, in the world in which we live in today, they could have been harmed. A lot of people right now are sitting on their gun in their house, and all they're waiting for is somebody to pull into their driveway, as we've seen in the news, or somebody to walk onto their property, and they want to shoot somebody. And furthermore, Muslims in the United States or in the West, they don't need any more negative publicity. And so why are we doing this? And so the thing that so it bothered me, of course, that the kids were kind of being kind of doing that type of behavior, but it also bothered me the language They were calling each other the N-word, kind of like behaving like gangsters, essentially behaving like, like what they see on television. And so I put this lecture together, and so some of it is not going to be very applicable to you guys because you may not. It was intended for a lot, like for the kids really. So when you did this program yesterday, I wanted the teenage boys and girls to be there so that we could talk, we could kind of have a little bit of interaction, and it was very interesting, the interaction. So I will share that with you. So essentially, today's program is really we're going to talk about kind of the role models that a lot of our kids have. What is the gangster culture that is kind of pulling them in? The concept of tazyin, which is an Islamic concept that you should be aware of, and then the idea about parenting, about making sure that we're doing the right job when it comes to parenting. So unfortunately, this topic, there's a lot of race issues in this topic, and so it does have sensitive content. And I told the people in the message yesterday, and I'm telling you guys as well, if I didn't get this right, if I say something that is you feel is insensitive, or I've said something that's offensive, I would ask you to let me know. Yesterday was the first time I ever gave this program, and alhamdulillah, I didn't get any negative comments on this regards, and so hopefully you guys will not all will not find anything offensive about this discussion either. So we talked yesterday. I had the kids try to name these people, and so I'm not sure if there's any young people listening to this right now, or it's mostly parents, but I put this guy up, and so kids knew him right away. So as soon as I threw this the picture up, people were like, "Oh, that's Tupac." Like all the kids knew him. Very few of the adults knew him. And again, remember that we're talking about the masjid, talking about primarily an immigrant population who are raising their kids in this country. So we're talking about people who have immigrated and their children are first generation Americans. So the parents sadly have no idea who this man is and what he stands for and how he lived his life and what he did with his life, and certainly they also don't know how he died. Then this guy, so the kids knew him right away, Jay-Z. Um, he's a multi-billion dollar, music producer who produces a lot of the hip hop that the kids are listening to. He makes a lot of money off of basically selling his people is what he's doing. He's selling black people in the United States a lie. He's destroying entire communities. Okay, so he can be a wealthy man, and yet people look up to him. Eminem, same kind of thing. And so a lot of people, they love his story that rags to riches. He was born a poor kid on the wrong side of the tracks in Detroit. Worked his way up through the rap contests and things like that, so he became the multimillionaire that he is now. This guy Drake, I'm sure you can tell from the picture what kind of classy human being that is. We also see Snoop Dogg, and most people, Snoop Dogg is generally not associated with anything good. Okay, he's associated with alcohol commercials and smoking, as you can see here. Smoking marijuana is what he's doing. He's smoking a joint. So he is well known for kind of encouraging the smoking of marijuana and drugs and whatnot. So another unfortunate person that our children know very, very well. And this is Puff Daddy, or Sean Diddy Combs, who is in the news a lot today because of the fact that apparently he has been running some kind of um, sex trade or something. I haven't really read into it. Another person who has made a lot of money off of people, off of selling this concept of what they think Black culture is. Okay, so our kids, they knew all of these people. Okay, the kids in the audience, they were able to identify all 6 of these people. When I asked them who this man is, they had no idea. Is anybody in anybody who has not heard this program? Does anybody know who this man is? Do you guys know from the chat? Anybody know who this man is?
No.
Langston?
No.
This man is Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is a very well-known author. Most people have read something by Langston Hughes if they've attended school in the United States. He is a very, very accomplished poet, writes beautifully, writes about good things. He was one of the very important civil rights activists during the civil rights movement in the United States. And so this is a black man who's done a lot of really good things for the black community, but nobody knows who he is. This person, all the kids knew, of course, so I was happy about that. It was a positive. Everybody knows Malcolm X, okay? But nobody knows this guy. Does anybody know this guy? Anybody listening right now? Anybody know who he is? He's a modern day person. This is a picture of when he was a little bit younger, but kind of still looks the same. Anybody?
No, but when you mentioned Langston Hughes, it reminded me, I read some poems of his in school. So yeah, but I don't know the last man. I know that one in the middle, Malcolm X.
Sure. The last person, his name is Professor Dr. Thomas Sowell. Sowell spelled Sowell. Sowell. And so I encourage you guys, especially people who are interested in this topic of the African American experience, or the Black experience in the United States. I encourage you guys to kind of look him up, but I'm going to share a couple of things about him with you. So Sowell is very he spent 30 years. He's a professor at Stanford University, an elite American university in California, where he has spent the last 30 years writing and researching about the Black experience in America, so the African American experience. And he has some very interesting theories, and it's pretty hard to kind of knock his theories. There are people who disagree with him, but they have a hard time kind of going against his evidence. He has a lot of very strong evidence. So one of the things that he talks about this concept of crackers. Okay, so and I don't mean the food cracker. He's talking about the racial epithet or the derogatory term for white people that has been used in the past about in regards to white people. So a long time ago, those of you who are old enough who might remember Richard Pryor and people of that era, okay, they used to call white people crackers. And so what is a cracker? Cracker is essentially a southern white person. So we're talking about when they talk about poor people in the South, we're talking about Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, the Carolinas, that part of the United States. And so this is before a lot of the migration into the Midwest and to the west part of the country. And so when the United States was primarily kind of isolated to the East Coast, or east of the Mississippi, poor white people in the South, okay, were known as crackers. So where did this word come from? Some people say it's short for whip cracker because they used to, these were people who their jobs entailed manual labor, driving livestock like cows and pigs and such with a whip. There's another term, or there's another possibility that was used actually by Shakespeare. So long before that, Shakespeare talked about it, where he talked about this issue of you know a cracker being a person who talks a lot, okay, who talks loud and talks a lot, okay, someone who kind of diarrhea of the mouth, so to speak, okay. So he wrote about it in his in King John, Shakespeare's King John, where he says, "What cracker is the same that deafs our ears with this abundance of superfluous breath?" So basically, this cracker who is making my ears hurt with all of his talking, with all of his excess talking. So this is the concept of the loud braggart. Okay, someone who talks a lot, usually pretty loud, usually bragging. Okay. So it was used primarily for the group of Scottish, Irish people who came to America and it was something that was pretty common. So white people, particularly white people of a northern kind of culture, used to use this term against other white people from the South. So one of the governors of Florida, who had immigrated from the North, he says, "We don't know what to do with these crackers. We tell them to settle this area, and they don't. We tell them not to settle this area, and they do." So they just were people who were rebellious and ignorant and stuff like that. By the early 1800s, those same immigrants, the Scottish Irish people, started to refer to themselves as crackers as a quote badge of honor. Okay, and so this was one of the early forms of linguistic reappropriation, where people take a term which is used against them and they start using it for themselves. Okay, as a way of reclaiming the words, as they say. Okay, so over the course of time, basically, crackers were essentially the term used for white people of a lower class or of a criminal disposition. Okay, so this comedian, he has something, kind of a joke about it.
Religion has their holy sites, right? Muslims have Mecca, Jews have Jerusalem, Christians have Cracker Barrel. Right? All Christians love a cracker barrel. They don't even say barrel, they say barrel. Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel sounds like a white people unit of measurement. Right? How many crackers were there? About a barrel's worth. Not a barrel worth of cracker, none. Not a barrel worth of cracker, none. You know those rednecks that don't speak in only vowels? Barrel worth of cracker, none. Barrel worth of cracker, none. Why is it the more racist the guy, the less comfortable the belt? What's going on there?
So something I hope that brings a smile to your face, but anybody who's lived in the southern United States may be able to relate to some of that comedy. But that it's in essence kind of describes what was known as the cracker. Now again, it is a racial epithet. It is a derogatory term, and as Muslims, we will not use words like that. We would not use anything that's derogatory or insensitive. Now we're going to talk a little bit, but so back to Thomas Sowell, the guy that nobody knew, that guy that was all the way on the left. So Thomas Sowell, he was talking. He talks a lot about this issue of crackers, and he came up with this concept of black rednecks. So he basically is saying, okay, his research, if we were going to try to summarize his research, as this man in the video will for us in a moment, Thomas Sowell was saying that black culture is not what is represented to us today in the media. For those of you who are old, is anybody old enough to remember black entertainment television?
Yes, BET.
Yep, BET. So since you remember that, can you describe for me at any given time, if you turned on BET, what would be on? What would I expect to find on that channel at any given time? Day, night, doesn't matter.
At any given time, you'd be expected to see the shows like, Martin and Black people shows. You also see music and music videos and people who just perform and stuff.
Okay, so the music videos that they would show, what kind of things are we talking about? People singing, using their beautiful voice and singing beautiful songs about culture and education and love, or would be seeing something else?
Not
It usually
necessarily.
be something else,
Something else, like what?
like drugs and stuff, and
There
the
we go.
life.
So women who are almost naked, if not, for all intents and purposes, they are naked, showing all of their body parts. Okay, dancing around, jumping around, guys with chains, singing rap songs, usually hip hop, talking about drugs, talking about killing people, talking about I'm gonna, if you cross me, I'm gonna take you out, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna beat my woman, I'm gonna, basically violent, angry songs. Okay, that and so the thing is that for again, this was on BET. And so this was represented to Black people in the United States as this is your culture. What is your culture? Your culture, is it an educated culture? No, it's not an educated culture. Is it a culture that's modest? Absolutely not. Is it a culture which is calm and and works things out by logic and by no? It's a culture where it's violent. Okay, this is the culture that was sold to people. Okay, and that started back in the 80s. Okay, and now we're seeing the kind of the impact of that. So if you were to go back into the 30s, 1930s, okay, you might be surprised to know that the divorce rate was highest among which group of people in America? Anybody know? The divorce rate was highest among white people. The vast majority of Black families in the 1930s in America were two-parent families. Okay, there was a father, and the father lived at home, and the father took care of his family. The father had a job, and he cared for his family, and he raised his kids. Okay, so the divorce rate among Black people in the United States in the 30s was far lower than it was among white people. And in fact, the marriage rate among Black people in the 1930s was much higher than the marriage rate among white people. What's the marriage rate today in the Black community in the United States? Close the door, please. Any thoughts on that?
Probably 60.
So it's actually closer to 20.
It's like 32% or something around there.
Very low. The vast majority of people are not married, and so this is what gives rise to certain terminologies, okay, that became very common in the Black community and started to spread, by proxy to the white community. For example, a woman that has kids but is not married, what do we call the man in a situation like that today? What's the cultural word for him, or what's the slang term for that kind of a guy?
Baby daddy.
Very good, baby daddy. Okay, and so we got baby mama and baby daddy and all these types of things. And so this was not the culture of African Americans in the United States as of the turn of the century. So how did we get to this point? Okay, from that, how did we get to a marriage rate of 80% down to a marriage rate of between 20 and 30%? How did we get from men who were responsible for their families and cared for their families to men who are completely irresponsible and a generation which is only being raised by single mothers? How did we get to that point? And so this is the thing that Thomas Sowell is talking about. And that's why it's important for you to know who he is, because he's talking about what happened to the African American culture. So I'll let you listen to what this man has to say. Essentially, this white gentleman above, he's actually summarizing some of Thomas Sowell's ideas.
Hey, yo, Black people, you listen? I'm not that thirsty of a person to just believe anything that somebody tell me, but I am thirsty enough to drink this entire bottle of hot sauce. If you're able to prove to me why it is that there's a very good chance that what this man said is the truth.
When liberals look at the people in ghettos, they say, racism. That's why they're not succeeding. And Sowell is saying, no, it's not. Because if you look at this group from the West Indies, they also came from the experience of slavery. They're also Black, so they also face racism, and yet they do well. So it has to be something else. And what Sowell is saying is that they were robbed of their culture, and so they picked up the culture of the people around them, and the people around them were rednecks. And if you look at the white redneck culture and the Black redneck culture, they have a lot of the same values. They don't particularly respect education. They love Jesus. They use violence in their conflicts. And even Ebonics, which is, Black English, is actually all from the west of England.
So I'm not sure if any of that is surprising to you guys, but so this is the idea that Thomas Sowell has. He said basically when these Black people were brought from Africa, okay, they had a culture. They had a culture, and in fact, a large number of them had what kind of a culture?
They had a very civilized culture.
I think all of them had a civilized culture. I'm not talking about that. They were very civilized. There were people that valued education. There were people that valued hard work. There were families, people that valued families. But more importantly, what I want to share with you is what kind of religious culture did a lot of these people have?
They was Christians.
Christians.
No, Muslim. Very large number of these people were Muslims. Remember, Africa at that time, we're talking about. So if you're talking about bringing people from, so Christianity is a fairly new phenomenon from the missionaries. Okay, so the Western missionaries going into Africa and quote unquote converting populations in Africa is a fairly new phenomenon over the last 100, 200 years. Okay, so we're talking about back in that time. So we're looking at slavery times 400, 500 years ago when these people were being brought to the United States. Okay, so these people were coming from West Africa, which were places like Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria. Okay, these countries are almost all of them are, they have very, very heavy populations of Muslims, and they've always had. I mean, since going back, 1,000 years, since Islam came to that area. Okay, the others, some of them were animists. Okay, so we're talking about Congo and places more in the central part, okay, Central Africa. Some of them were animists, so they were people who were mushrikeen, essentially, people who believed in a variety of things. And then you're talking about, start looking in the southern part of Africa, okay. Again, there's less Muslims at that point in time, more animists, okay. But a lot of these people that were brought over were Muslim. Where did Jesus come into this, and where did Christianity come into this? Is that they were taught that by their slave owners, by their masters, that you have to, in order to be a good person and to be able to move up in the slave ranks, okay. So instead of being a field slave, you can be a house slave, okay, if you love Jesus, okay. So you gotta love Jesus, and that's kind of how a lot of that came in. But what if you're a staunch Muslim? What if you want to make your prayers on time, even if you're out in the fields? What's going to happen to you?
You're gonna get beat.
You're going to get beat to death, okay? And they're going to make an example out of you. This is what happens. You start talking Allah and Muhammad, we're going to kill you. You want to die like this man? You want to die painfully? We're going to beat him and then hang him from a tree and then leave him to rot on the tree. You want to be like him? Go ahead. Be my guest. Go ahead and read your Quran. Go ahead and pray. I don't care. I'll get more of you. There's more where you guys came from. And so what happens then? People get scared and people start worrying about their children. And this is what happens. So what Thomas Sowell is saying is that Black people who were brought from Africa, they lost their culture. And the evidence for that is when you consider that slavery also existed in the Caribbean. So slavery was not something just in America, it also happened in the Caribbean. So Barbados, Jamaica, the Bahamas, all the, Antigua, all these countries, they all had slave populations, okay? Now, what happened to those people? Okay, so Black people in the Caribbean, they also are Black, so they have racism. They also had slavery, but when you look at them, especially when they come to the United States to do something, to come work, you find that they're very hardworking, they're very family oriented, they're very decent, respectable, cultured. They don't use a lot of bad language. They're not violent people. So what's the difference? Okay, so they're Black and they also had slavery. So why are they so different from the American experience? And so he's saying the reason is that the culture that was found, okay, the culture of the slave owners, okay, in the Caribbean was very different than the culture of the Scots Irish that were the predominant group in the southern United States. Okay, so what happened is that this is what caused the Black people in that area to essentially adopt the culture of the redneck. They adopt the cracker culture, as they call it. Okay, the culture which says, I don't care about education. Education is not important. Okay, so it's an ignorant culture. It's a violent culture. Everything is solved by fistfights and guns and violence. It's a culture which has no respect for authority. A culture which is inherently rebellious. A culture which is very kind of zealous when it comes to Christianity. Okay, That's the difference. And so when you say, whoa, wait a second here, that sounds very, very much like the African American experience today. But then, like I said, go and meet somebody from Barbados or from Antigua or any of these countries, you're gonna be like, wait a second, these are not like the other black people. Go and meet somebody from Africa. So if you have a chance to meet an immigrant coming from, Ghana or from Senegal or from Nigeria, and we're like, wait a second, they don't have any of that culture. These are people who highly value education, highly value, family structure. These are people who are, who know their family and they're responsible for their children. So what happened to the African American culture? It was taken away from them. And that's very, very important to understand this as we go forward. So, and of course, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So I'm going to ask you, so there's two boys in this picture, one older man. What do you think about these two boys? What would you call these two boys?
We wouldn't call them nothing.
Okay, good. I'll take that answer. Anybody else got an answer?
They just look like kind kids.
Okay, so this is a picture of me and my brother when we were kids. Okay, so I'm from Egypt, and you can see that we're not white. Okay, and so when I'm not exposed to a lot of sun, my skin gets a little bit whiter. But my brother, he hangs out a lot in the sun. He goes outside a lot, and so he gets really, really dark sometimes. But we were called sand niggers when I was growing up. So I grew up in Maryland, okay, in a very white population of Irish Americans and Italian Americans, and I was called sand nigger a number of times, a whole bunch of times, and so was my brother. And so I know the experience. I know I don't like that word, and I just like black people don't like the N word. I don't like that word either because it was applied to me, and it was something that was used to hurt me and to hurt my brother, and it really hurt him, and I was too busy trying to protect myself at that point in time, and I wish I would have been a better, big brother for my young brother at the time. But sometimes when you're under assault like that, and people you're facing that type of prejudice, and people hating you just because of your name or because of your skin color, just like a lot of black people are experiencing today. It sometimes, you can't really think about, priorities at that time, especially when you're growing up.
It's
And
the
so
same. It's the same thing as when we used to. We're African. We're from Somalia, and when we used to go to when we were in high school and stuff, the people who like bullied us the most were the black kids, and they used to call us African booty scratchers, and it made no sense.
yeah, and so again, that's the behavior where do you think they learned that from?
They were probably taught that.
By white people. And that's the whole thing, is that this is not the African culture. And that's why you're going to see where I'm going with this. Is very important, is that we want to understand what is African culture, and that's very, very important, especially for those of us who work with young people in the Muslim community or young people period in this country, because there is an epidemic right now that's happening, and we need to do something about it. So the N word. So now we're going to come to the N word. Okay, so I just mentioned it as it was referenced to me and my brother. So the question now is that, so we all can agree, and I think there is nobody that is no person of color who thinks that the N word is okay or it's not a problematic word. Everybody agrees it's problematic. Now we have this unusual culture which sprouted up in the 90s, where black people would call one another the N word. Okay. And that's kind of, the opinions are divided as to regarding, is that okay? Is it okay for a black person to call another black person the N word? For sure, there's nobody thinks it's okay for a white person to call a black person the N word. But how about white people calling each other the N word if they're imitating or kind of trying to behave as if they're adopting quote unquote what they call black culture? So this is a big question, and so some of the proponents, people would say yes, it is allowed for black people to say it, and they say, well, we're owning the word now. We're taking it back. We're not going to allow it to be a racial epithet anymore. We're gonna use it against our own selves. which to me makes absolutely no sense. How you can take it would be like me going around to Muslim brothers and be like, "Yo, what's up, Kafir? Yeah, me and my Kafir bros, we're going like what? Why would that be okay? Why would it be okay for me to call another Muslim a Kafir, okay, and then say, well, I'm owning the term? Doesn't make any sense at all. It has absolutely no logic to it. But here we are. So when we ask that question, here's the answer.
Who's allowed to say the N-word? Honestly, not many people. People of color, I would think,
Only Black people are allowed to say the N-word. Point blank. I don't have a problem with any other Black people saying it. I just think, like, be conscious of how you say it and where you're using it in the context, and don't use the hard ER because that's really bad.
I don't want people to ever forget that that was the last word that some Black men or women would have heard before they were killed, before they were raped, before they were assaulted. The word isn't what holds the power, it's the conditions that that word existed under that still perpetuates today.
All right. So there's a few opinions. So they asked five African American people that question, and to me, maybe you guys might differ on or disagree, but it looks like there's three opinions. There's a couple of people were saying that yes, absolutely, Black people can use it against or use it with other Black people, or they can use it internally. There's a couple of guys that said no, that it's should not be used at all. It's actually something that you know people died for. And there's like one guy I think that's kind of in the middle, not really. She didn't really kind of clarify his position. So the question then, who is right? And what standard do I use? Is this something we should take a poll on? We could ask a bunch of people, in the community and see what everybody thinks. Is that how we decide things? The answer is no. The answer is the Quran is the criterion. So the criterion. So when we look at the Quran, one of the names of the Quran, okay, is Al-Furqan. Al-Furqan means the criterion. It divides between right and wrong. It tells us this is right and this is wrong. Your creator has already defined it for you. We don't need other people's opinions. I don't need to go and ask and do a survey to figure out if the N-word is okay to use. All right. So the answer is in this ayah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكون خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. So the meaning of that in English is, oh believers, don't make fun of one another as men, because the one you're making fun of may be better than you. And women shouldn't make fun of other women, because that woman you're making fun of might be better than you. And here's the real important one. And do not insult one another, and do not call each other by offensive nicknames. How evil is the name of disobedience after you have declared faith. And whoever does not repent, they are the wrongdoers. Okay? So we know that this word, the N-word, is offensive. So why should we use it? Why should we call one another by offensive nicknames? Why should we use words that are associated? And nobody is going to tell you right now, if you hear a Black man call another Black man the N-word, is there a positive usage of that? Is he going to say, yeah, my N here, he graduated today, with honors from his university. They don't use it that way. They're like, yeah, my N here, he put that guy down. He beat him down to the ground, or he did this or he did that. He didn't let his woman talk to him. He showed her who's boss. That's how it's being used. This is not something that a believer should be doing, and that's the idea. We have the story of Bilal and Abi Dhar. These are two of the companions of the Prophet. Bilal was a Black person who was one of the earliest Muslims. He is honored by how early he became a Muslim, number one. Number two, He was the muazzin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was beyond that one of the elite righteous people. In fact, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one very famous hadith, he said, "Oh Bilal, I found myself in Jannah last night, and I heard the sound of your sandals walking in Jannah. What are you doing that Allah allowed you to go into Jannah?" Like he's asking him, what good deeds are you doing that I'm not aware of? And so Bilal answered him and he said, well, I don't think I do anything special except that when I make wudu, I pray 2 rakahs after that. So that was something he was doing on his own. And so the Prophet ﷺ told him, he said, that action has put you into Jannah. So Bilal is one of the elites, one of the elite among the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Dharr is also one of the elite. He's someone who was actually a gangster. He actually was one of his tribe of Ghifar. They were highway robbers, and he was one of the very early people who accepted Islam. And he went back to his people, and he um, talked to them about Islam until they all became Muslim. And subhanAllah, when he came back to the Prophet ﷺ with his entire tribe, he actually brought another tribe, which was the tribe of Islam. And the tribe of Islam, when they saw Ghafar coming, and they said, "Where are you guys going?" Like you see this big group of gangsters. Like, where are you guys going? And they said, "We're going to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We're going to become Muslim." They said, "Oh no, you're not doing that before us. Like, you are not better than us. We're going to go before you." And so Abu Dhar showed up to the Prophet ﷺ with two tribes basically, and then all of them became Muslims. Abu Dhar was one of the great Muslims. So one time, much later, Abu Dhar and Bilal were having an argument. It happens. Brothers have arguments. Good people have arguments. And so Abu Dhar got upset with Bilal, and he said, "You son of a black woman." So Bilal, when he heard that, he got upset. He said, what does my mom have to do with this? And what is this? So what do you think Bilal did? Do you think he beat him up? Do you think he beat up Abu Dhar? He punched him? He called him some names in return? They got into a shouting match. They got into an insulting match. What do you think happened?
I believe he told the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him.
Exactly. So this is the idea, is the believer always goes back to what? When there's a disagreement, when there's a problem, the believer always goes back to the Quran and Sunnah. We don't sit and vote on it. We don't do surveys. We don't do these things. We go back to what Allah has taught us, what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us. So in that time, they had the honor that the Prophet lived with them, and so they could go ask him. So he said, "I'm going to go tell the Prophet ﷺ what you just said." So Abu Dhar got nervous. Okay, and so they both went to the Prophet, and Bilal said, "Can you believe this guy? He gets upset with me. He says, 'You son of a black woman.'" So the Prophet ﷺ was upset, and he looked at Abu Dhar and he said to him, "What?" He said, "You are a man who still has ignorance in you." And believe me, a statement like that from the Prophet ﷺ to one of his companions is a very profound, thing. It's something that's going to hurt, because we don't want to have ignorance in us. Ignorance means that you haven't entered into Islam fully. And Abu Dhar was so, crushed and ashamed of himself for what he did, that he laid down on the ground. This is an Arab, a nobleman among the Arabs. He's a chieftain. Okay, he laid down on the ground, put his face on the ground, on the sand, and he said to Bilal, "Put your foot over my face." And this was a way of demonstrating that you're better than me, that I accept your foot on my face because you're better than me. What do you think Bilal did? Pushed him down so he could step on him?
No.
Bilal kissed his face, and he said, "I would never do that to you. I'd never step on you. You're my brother, and so the only thing I'll do to your face is kiss it." So you see, this is the role model that the African community needs, someone like that. Because how can you hear that story except that you love Bilal? And you say, what an exceptional human being he was. And you see how forgiving and kind and gentle he was. But nonetheless, when we look at one another as black and white and red and yellow and whatever color else, we look at each other as, this backgrounder that you're Arab and you're Desi and you're Pakistani, you're African, you're Indonesian, you're whatever, okay? We missed the boat at that point in time. Then we're really not talking about we're not talking about the right thing at that point in time, okay? And you see here that this is how they dealt with one another. So what is your identity then? Okay, so what is your culture? So a lot of people they talk about, well, I want to marry somebody that's got my culture. Say, well, don't we all have the same culture for Muslim? Isn't there such a thing as an Islamic culture? And the reality is yes. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said in Surah Al-Hujurat, in Surah 49, Ya ayyuhan nas, إن خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. O humanity. So Allah's addressing this to all of humanity. We created you from a male and a female and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you. Okay. So what's the purpose of this difference between us? This difference in skin color and the difference in where we were born. The difference is so that we get to know each other. We get to appreciate each other. We get to love each other. So it's the idea would be that I come up to you and be like, hey, so what kind of food do you guys eat? Because like in my culture, like we eat this. And you'd be like, oh no, in my culture, we don't really eat that, but we eat this. And you're like, can I try some of your food? Oh man, this is good. This is so good. I could eat this every day. And that's the idea is we get to experience one another. And so when you travel to another country, why do you travel to another country? Why don't you just stay in your own city? Because you want to see something different. You want to experience that culture and the way that people do things differently. They dress differently and all the differences. We appreciate that. We love it. It's something beautiful. So why are we racist? Why do we say that my culture is the best? Well, we should appreciate one another. But in reality, what we have to understand is that we're Muslim, our culture is Islam. What guides us is Islam. So, yeah, you might have some slight differences in the way you eat and the way you dress and the type of hat you wear and all that type of stuff. Okay, all that might be a little different, but at the end of the day, we share the same culture, and that's why you can walk into a masjid anywhere on earth and you can feel like you're at home, which is the way it's supposed to be. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he talked about this a lot. He said, "O people," in one hadith in the Tirmidhi, an authentic hadith, that he said, "O people, truly Allah has taken away from you the arrogance of the times of ignorance and its pride in its forefathers." We don't need to have that. We don't have to say, "Oh, I'm so proud of my country and my people." No, we don't need that. We're Muslim. We don't. Our country is a huge country that stretches across the globe. That's our country. And the Prophet ﷺ continued and said, people are two types. You have the pious person who is dear to Allah, and then you have the person who does evil, who is insignificant before Allah. And then he recited the rest of the ayah, what I was reciting you, إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. The most honored, the most noble of humanity in the sight of Allah are the righteous. Don't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter where you were born or what passport you have. What matters is your relationship with Allah. And so, in another hadith, a very similar concept, the hadith in Musnad Imam Ahmad from Abu Nadra, where he said, someone who heard the last speech of the Prophet Muhammad, the khutbah al-wada', the last khutbah that he gave when he was in Hajj, where he said, "O people, your Lord is one and your Father is one. Verily, there is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or of a non-Arab over an Arab, or of a red man over a black man, or of a black man over a red man, except in terms of taqwa. Have I conveyed the message?" And they said, "O Messenger of Allah, you have conveyed the message." So our Father is one. So Everybody is me, you, and everybody around us. Our father. We all go back to Adam alayhi salam. We all have the same lineage. There's no sense in this, in this silliness of racism. The next concept we want to talk about is toxic masculinity, which is often a huge part of this gangster culture, which has been falsely labeled the Black culture in America. So basically, the concept here is that toxic masculinity is the essence of it is that if young people, young men particularly, they don't have adequate recreational cultural facilities, they don't have jobs, they don't have social networks, then what do? They end up going into gangs, and they use violence to dominate and subordinate other gangs, okay, so that they can prove who's superior, who's the superior man. So high levels of violence are used to prove gang members' masculinity. And the way that young gang members often think about and understand masculinity often means gender-based violence. So a real man ain't gonna let his woman talk to him like that. He's gonna slap her. He's gonna put her in her place. You know, this type of toxic, ideology. And that's why we see that. So when we look at domestic violence in this country, we look at intimate partner violence, a whole lot of it happening in the Black community. It's out proportional. So when we look at percentages of people, okay, so the white community is this much percent of the community, the Black community is this much, the Hispanic community is this much, the Asian community is this much. Okay, what you find is that the Black population outperforms others when it comes to this issue. They do more gender-based violence because it is essentially taught as a way of proving your manhood. Okay, so you want to be a real man? Okay, you got to do this. And so the why that I wanted to get to when it comes to this issue, specifically with our kids in the Muslim community. So why do many kids want to act, dress, or try to be gangsters? Okay. And what we have to understand is in the absence of truth, okay, then human nature sprouts up in ways that are deviated or unnatural. So we look at this ayah in the end of Surah Al-Hadid, Surah 57, where Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, He talks about sending the different prophets and sending Jesus, alayhi salam jami'an, and He instilled compassion and mercy into the hearts of the followers of Jesus. Okay? And then He says, وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا. But as for monasticism, okay, what is monasticism? This is idea of men and women saying we're not going to get married, okay? We're just going to go live in these monasteries, or so the nuns go live in their building, and the monks, they go live in their building, and they say we are holy people and we're not going to get married because we want to focus our life on the service of God. Okay? So Allah says this rahbaniyah, this monasticism, ibtada'uha. It's a bid'ah. It's a bid'ah, a religious innovation. They made it up. Allah never commanded them to do it. Ma katabnaha alayhim. We never commanded them to do it. Illa btigha'a ridwanillah. So they made it up because they were trying to please Allah, because they wanted to be good people, they wanted to be righteous, and so the shaitan came to them and said, "Hey, I got a great idea for you people. Just don't get married. Just go live by yourselves in, like, group of men. Just go live by yourselves in this place. You just wear the same clothes every day. You eat like really basic food, and then that way you can focus all your time on praying and fasting and worshiping God. What a great idea." And they were like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We should do it." And then but Allah says, فَمَا رَعَوْهَا حَقَّ رِعَايَتِهَا. Yet they did not even do it right. They made up the idea, but then they couldn't do it. What does it mean that they couldn't do it?
I mean, they still messing with each other.
Exactly. And so the idea here is that okay, well, so they said we're going to do this type of thing, but then all of a sudden in the 80s and 90s, people started saying, has anybody here been raped by their priest when they were a kid? Then everybody's hand went up and they're like, yeah. In fact, my priest was raping me for 10 years when I was a kid, and I'm still messed up as a result. And so that was the whole thing that went down, right? Those of you that may have lived through it, and if you haven't, you can go look it up. It's a very long historical period, which is still not over. There's still cases coming out of all these. It was primarily the Catholics, because the Catholics were the ones that that had this. The Baptists, they would get married. A number of their pastors would get married, but the Catholics were the ones that were saying we're not, our priests cannot get married. And so what they were doing is that they were suppressing their human nature, so their human nature came out in an unnatural way, which was they started raping kids, raping boys, because that's what they had access to. And if you go back in history, you'll see all forms, all types of bizarre things. There are monasteries where they found catacombs so they found a tunnel, an underground tunnel between where the guys were and where the women were, where the nuns were, where the monks were. Okay, separate buildings, but there was a tunnel underground between them. So what was happening? So they go and they talk all this good talk, and then at night they all go and meet up with each other and have sex, and the nun gets pregnant, and so she can hide it for a little while because she's got those big abayas that they wear. But then when she's obviously pregnant, then Sister Mary is unavailable. She's not going to be coming out for a couple of months. You know what I'm saying? She's going to have to stay in her room. And when the baby's born, what do you do with the baby? You bury it in the wall of those catacombs, because that's what they found. They found the bones of infants buried in the walls of the catacombs. Okay, you found a whole variety. If you've read through European literature, medieval European literature, you'll find all kinds of bizarre stories that involved priests. Okay, tricking stupid girls into having sex, and and all kinds of things. Okay, so that's the idea. So the principle here is that whenever you suppress human nature, you have to understand it's going to come up in an unnatural way. So what am I talking about? If you don't do things like this, and so with our kids in the United States and elsewhere, we have to understand that boys generally have a lot of energy. Those of you who have boys, I'm sure you can testify to this. Okay, boys have a lot of energy, and they're usually very violent. Okay, but not in a bad way, not in a mean way. They're just violent. Okay, so they like to do violent things. They like to throw themselves off of buildings and jump off of high diving boards and jump off of cliffs into water and do all this crazy stuff that's death-defying, death-defying activities. Okay, motorcycles is not the passion of women. Motorcycles is primarily the passion of men. Yes, there are women who ride motorcycles, but 90% of people who ride motorcycles are men. Okay, when you look at dirt bike, stunts and skateboard stunts, again, primarily these are men. All this death-defying behavior is men. Okay, boys have this energy. Okay, and they don't know what to do with it. Okay, so the principle is, if you're going to tell your boy, I want you to sit down 10 hours a day at a desk, and I want you to read this, and I want you to memorize this, you're not gonna succeed, because you're basically suppressing something which is natural in them. They need to move. They need to get up. They need to run. They need physical activity. And as a result, I'll tell you something funny. Like yesterday, we were having this conversation in the masjid, okay? And after the lecture was over, I was sitting in the masjid talking to one brother, okay, a father, and the masjid, everybody like went out there, like had their dinner and stuff like that. So everybody was outside eating dinner. So while I was sitting there, this is like 20 minutes, 25 minutes after the program was over, all the teenage boys that I was having in the front row of this talk, they all came back in the masjid. Why do you think they came back in the masjid? There was like 7, 8 of them.
Because they parents know what they're doing now.
No, I
They
wish.
probably came back in there to see you because the way you
Nope,
was
they didn't come
talking
back
to
to
them.
see me. They didn't know I was there. They were
Oh,
surprised to find me there, but they had intended to go in there without. They just thought everybody's outside, nobody's in the masjid, so let's go in the masjid.
Oh, they was just a rough and play.
Exactly. They went in. They started wrestling with each other. They started doing UFC, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu on each other, fighting each other. Okay, huffing, puffing, red faces, sweating, and just fighting. Okay, but they got up after that and they hugging each other and high-fiving each other, and there's no bad feelings here. Nobody is angry with nobody else. They're just boys, and boys will be boys, as they say. So you gotta give them something to do. So put them on. I mean, again, for those of you that grew up in this country, okay, sports has saved many young men, from becoming delinquents. Okay, because you take a boy out of high school at 3 p.m., okay, or 2:30 or whatever, when they get out of high school, and you make them go and run laps and hit them with sticks. I was a lacrosse player when I was in high school. So that's what we did. You go and run sprints and go run laps and then go hit each other with your lacrosse sticks. And I was the goalie, and people throwing balls at me and hitting me and bruising me up, and that's what we did. And so guess what? Practice is over at 5:30. You sweat. You just need a really good shower, and you want to go to sleep because you got it out of you. You got the aggression out of you. You got all the energy out of you. You're tired now. Okay, but you send kids home. Nowadays a lot of schools don't even have PE. Send the kid home at 2:30. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to do crazy things. And this is very, very common in the Muslim community. We don't pay attention to this. We don't recognize that boys need to do stuff, and girls sometimes too, but girls are generally, more, calm and not violent. You know what I'm saying? So girls, you can let them sit together and they can talk, and they're more cerebral. Okay, but boys at that age, they're not cerebral at all. They want to go and they want to be physically active. Okay, so if you don't realize, okay, if you don't pay attention to this, okay, all right, then this is what you get. You don't get these beautiful examples here. This is what you get. You get the wife beater. Okay. So where did the wife beater come from? The wife beater came from so this picture on the far left, this is a streetcar named Desire, the play. Okay. And it basically it was based on a real story, a true story of a crime that happened in 1947, where a Detroit native, James Hartford, a white guy, was arrested for beating his wife to death. Okay, so across the country, readers were shown a reprinted photo of Hartford in a stained tank top undershirt, okay, with the caption "The Wife Beater." So at the same time, Hollywood reinforced this connection between lower class brutish men and the undershirt. So in A Streetcar Named Desire is Stanley Kowalski, okay, who is shoving Blanche to the ground, okay. He's manhandling his woman, okay, while wearing that shirt, okay. So this became known as the wife beater. So in American culture, someone walking around with this T-shirt, people say that's the wife beater. If you do that in Egypt, nobody cares. Okay, it's not really considered a classy thing to do, walking around outside wearing a shirt like that, wearing a tank top or a undershirt like this. People don't generally do it, but if you find someone that did it, you probably say, he's probably not a classy person, but you're not going to think he's a wife beater. But in the United States, this has become synonymous with the wife beater. So you see here in the middle, The Fast and the Furious, which is a hugely successful film, franchise in the United States. And here's the main hero, Dominic Toretto, okay, on the left, wearing the wife beater. So somehow or another, this concept became known. Okay, tough men, okay, tough guys, okay, that's how they dress. Gang people, gangsters, tough guys, people you don't want to mess with. That's how they dress, okay. And they all know it's called a wife beater, and they're totally okay with it, okay. That's the problem. So if we don't give our kids something to do, then like I said, then remember that violence is going to come out in other ways. And that's coming out now that kids want to be gangsters. The kids they look up to the gangster culture, and I want to walk around and I want people to be afraid of me. I want to carry a gun and people are gonna, know not to mess with me. And so this idea of, I want people's respect because they're afraid of me. This is what's happening. And so it's something which is spreading. It's not something which is in the Black community only. It's something which is in the Arab community and the Desi community, like the Pakistani Indian community. It's in all forms of the Islamic community. We have a problem. Okay. Now, here's the problem is that there actually is something called the rujula. Okay, this is an Islamic concept which basically translates into the how to be a man. What does it mean to be a man in Islam? And so rujula is coming from the word rajul, which means man. Now, there is a difference between rajul and dhakar. These are two Arabic words. Rajul means man and dhakar means male. And there's a difference between a man and a male. So what is this? What do we understand from the Quran about men? Who are the men in society? We take these two ayat from the Quran as central examples. The first one from Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah number 33. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. Among the believers, there are men who were true to what they promised Allah. Okay, that's one. All right. The second one on the left, الرجال قوامون على النساء. That men are the protectors, the maintainers of women. So from these two ayat, we understand something important, which is that manhood is reflected in taking primary responsibility for providing security to society, which includes families from outward harm. Again, manhood is reflected in taking primary responsibility for providing security to the society, which includes families from outward harm. So in Islam, true manhood is not about being abusive to women and girls, nor is it neglecting the responsibility to protect them. Women should feel safe and protected by Muslim men, meaning safe from being harmed by them physically and dishonored by them emotionally, as well as feeling secure that Muslim men will stand up to protect them from outside threats, even if it means those men will sacrifice their lives for them in the process. So a real man, in the Islamic definition, is a responsible man. He's a man who takes care of his family. He's a man who protects his wife and his daughters and his sons, of course. He's not a man who abuses his wife and his daughters. He's a man who takes care of the bills. He's a man who makes sure that his family feels safe. And he is a man who, if necessary, will give up his own life to make sure that his family is safe. And I think you all can agree. Do we have a lot of those guys around, or are we lacking in that department these days?
Definitely lacking.
Definitely, yes. And that's what I hear from sisters all the time. So I hear from sisters all the time, brother, Dr. Ali, there are no real men left. Men don't want to have responsibility. So we got the man boys that want to, keep on acting like a child until their 30s and 40s. Men who expect their wives to go work so they can sit at home. Men who say, well, I don't have enough of a job. I don't have a lot of money, to be able to support you. So can you go out, sister, and help me out? I need some help paying the rent. And that same guy then goes and turns around and does what? Tells you that he's ready to have a second wife. Well, you obviously can't take care of one family, so how are you going to take care of two? I tell this story sometimes that there was once a brother that I saw at the masjid. I'm not going to say where, but it was here in the United States, and he was sitting there would just look really, really sad. And he was like kind of like his face wasn't, he had both hands over his face, and he just looked real, real depressed. I was like, hey, bro, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Are you all right? He's like, no, man. He's like, two of my wives divorced me today. Two of your wives? How many wives do you have, man? And I know him. I know him good. Like I know him like what kind of job he has. And I know that his job is barely enough for one family. So I'm like, you have 3 wives at least, okay? And your salary isn't enough for one wife, barely. And he told me, I said, so why did they divorce you? He said they divorced me because I wasn't contributing financially. And they said, this isn't just, you just show up in my house and the house I'm paying for, the apartment I'm paying for, spend the night and act like this is all halal. Okay, and you just leave in the morning, hippie skippy, and everything's good, and you don't pay it nothing, you don't pay a dime, you're not responsible. So a responsible man is financially responsible and physically responsible. And that's the thing, is that this is the Islamic definition. But again, we're failing in that. So we're getting these boys that are growing up and they don't understand this. So, and that's because of this imitation. They're imitating the disbeliever. They're imitating these gangsters and this gangster culture. So in the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, where he said, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, you will certainly follow the ways of those who came before you, handspan by handspan, inch by inch, to the extent that if they entered the hole of a lizard, you would enter it too. And so we said, Ya Rasulullah, do you mean the Jews and the Christians? And he said, who else? So the interesting thing about this hadith is, okay, so the question that should be obvious is, okay, why would you go into the hole of a lizard? Is there any reason, any one of you that's listening to this, do you guys go into the holes of lizards? Are you guys climbing down into the earth, or, crawling into the earth? Is anybody doing that? I'm assuming by your silence that's a no, which is good. I don't go into the holes of a lizard either. So what is he trying to say? What is the Prophet telling us here in such a beautiful way? Is it make sense for a human being to enter the hole of a lizard? Is there any good reason for a human being to do that?
No.
None, right? There is no good reason for a human being to enter the hole of a lizard. But the Prophet ﷺ is saying that, sadly, people in this ummah are going to see somebody else, some other fool, okay, do that, and they're going to go do it too. And you tell them, why are you doing it? And they're going to say, well, it's cool because so-and-so is doing it. Okay, so this is the concept. Why do people hang their pants down by their knees? Why do you find all these people walking around in the street and their pants, the waist of their pants is below their butt, or at best it's in the middle of their buttocks? What's the reason? Is there a reason for that no one has shared with me? Do you guys know the reason?
Oh, this was the type of dress that was, um, basically worn in the jail system. And a lot of these men came out into the streets and, started wearing their pants in the same manner. And
Yeah.
then in that lifestyle, others, started imitating that also. Then it, migrated into the rap scene, into
Yep.
the videos, and everybody was trying to emulate that. And they still go on and emulate that in today's scene, because that's what's being shown on the screen for these young kids and young men to
Yep.
emulate. That's
So let's
cool.
go back to the very beginning of what you said, that this was happening in jails. Why was it happening? Is that some type of jail fashion? Was that something that the jails decided that we're gonna make sodomy a little bit easier, so we're gonna just ask you guys in prison just to wear your pants under your buttocks? That way, when somebody wants to sodomize you, it's a little bit easier. Is that the reason?
Exact. From what I remember, that was a reason also.
It was
Where
some, it was a reason that some people would do that. You're 100% right. Is that some people would intentionally do that because they had homosexual kind of in desires. Okay, but the reason that the vast majority of people that they did it was because the jail doesn't have so many sizes, and so a person might show up in jail and they're a size medium pants, okay, or size small. I'm sorry, size small, but there isn't a size small available. So they're going to give him a size medium. They're not going to be, well, I guess I'm going to let you wear your jeans until we get you a pair of prison pants. They don't care. I'm like, here, take this. I don't care. It doesn't fit. I don't care. You're still going to wear it. So you got this poor guy who's a size small, okay, trying to wear a size medium, or a guy who's a size medium wearing a size large, okay? And so as a result, the pants are sagging, not intentionally, but they're sagging because he doesn't have the right size on. That's where it came from, okay? And so it makes some degree of sense in jail, okay? But why would you do that outside of jail? That's the whole thing, is that there is no real good reason for that. There's no logic to it. There's no intellect behind it, okay? This is just fools copying fools. There's no intellect at all. And then, like I said, you got people who can afford a belt and they can't afford to buy pants that fit them, but they buy pants that don't fit them, okay, so that they can have that appearance. So this is where the problem lies. I'm telling you, would you think about ever going in the hole of a lizard? No, I have no idea why a human being would go in the hole of a lizard. Well, guess what? There are other people out there. They're going to do things that are even weirder than that, even more strange than that. Make sense to you guys? Does everybody understand that?
Yeah, makes sense.
And so, and then the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever imitates the people is one of them. This is very dangerous, because if you're imitating a disbeliever, then the Prophet ﷺ is saying that you're going to be counted as a disbeliever. That's why we very strongly avoid that, because we do not want to be counted among them. And so Bilal Phillips, he said this beautiful statement. He said, the more eagerly our eyes hasten to imitate people, the more resistant our hearts become to what pleases Allah. So all you care about is imitating others, okay, to look cool or feel cool or think you're cool or whatever, then your heart at the same time is becoming very resistant to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So what is the thug life? So this is the big, thing everybody's talking about, thug life, and the thug life chose me, and I didn't choose it, and this is a big thing, and it started in the Black community. It spread outside of the Black community extensively. Okay, thug life is something that it's an acronym, and so it's THUGLIFE, which actually stands for something. I'm not going to tell you what exactly it stands for, because it involves curse words, but the hate you give little infants destroys everyone, is what Tupac is the one who came up with it, and that's what he was trying to say. So he's basically saying that children are the future, and so filling children's minds with hate, raising them in an oppressive political system, asking them to accept racism, sexism, police brutality, that has an effect which destroys life for everyone. So that's thug life. And so so I'll ask you this question. So did Tupac Shakur, when he made this acronym, did he intend something good to come out of it? I mean, is it a good thing to not teach children racism and sexism and police brutality? Is that something we should strive to do as Muslims? Should we strive to, keep stuff like that away from our kids? Or
No, they need to know their environment.
they need to know it, but we can teach them about it, but we don't want them to experience it, right? So that's what he's talking about. Like, they shouldn't experience it. They will experience it, sadly. But the question I'm asking you, is it a noble idea to protect children from having to go through that type of experience?
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
Yes.
100%. It is. This is. I mean, if I took Tupac Shakur out of it and I took thug life out of it, I said, hey, as Muslims, we don't want kids to experience racism. We don't want young girls to experience sexism. We don't think anybody should be brutalized by the police or by any type of authority. You'd be like, yeah, absolutely. That's 100% Islam. So 100% what he said is good. Here's the problem, okay? When you try to dress things up, okay, in this ugliness, okay, you take a good concept and you try to dress it up with all this, sadly, with this falsehood, these false idols around it, it's not going to hold on to that meaning. And as a result, by 2015, thug life memes mutated into a series of images showing privileged suburban white kids, captioned with Tupac's quote, "I didn't choose the thug life chose me." And so they were trying to do that to be cool. Okay. It lost all of its meaning. So what happened is that, because sadly, he chose thug life, and thug is not a good word. Thug is not a compliment. You don't compliment somebody and tell them you're a thug. You insult somebody by telling them they're a thug. So why? Sadly, he chose these bad words, okay, to create his acronym, and as a result, it turned into. I mean, people just used it for what they thought it was, which was the evil thing that they thought it was. And so, as a result, what's thug life in reality? That's what we see in the streets today. And again, it's in the black community. It's pervasive, unfortunately, in the black community, but it's in a lot of the communities today. So there's a lot of the poor white communities. The same kind of thing is happening. Poor Hispanic communities, same thing is happening. And sadly, as more and more Muslims come to the United States, more people come from Syria and Iraq and Egypt and Lebanon and Palestine, all these places, and then they start ghettoizing. We're seeing the exact same thing happening in these communities as well, where these kids who grew up and they had beautiful names like Abdullah and Muhammad and Abdul Rahman and so forth, that they turned into Mo and Joe and Go and whatever, and they're selling drugs and they're walking around with chains and carrying guns. So it's not. It's the concept is spreading in a bad way, and so it's drug use, alcohol use, stealing, selling drugs, as a means of making money, using women as objects. Okay, so the baby daddy and the baby mama concept. It's like, again, this is no longer a black thing anymore. There's a lot of white people going around saying my baby daddy, and so I'm like, what happened to? So this is the way they're trying to make it cool to say zina. Okay, this is the child of my zina. Okay, this is the child of my illegal sexual experiences. Okay, and so in raising these kids to basically do the exact same thing. And so what are they raising the little girls to? And so you see the clothing is being sold to little girls, the short shorts, and the low the tops that are low cut, and all that type of thing. What are we teaching? What are we showing the kids? Violence, especially against your own people. So the race on race killing, so blacks killing blacks, Hispanics killing Hispanics. Okay, this type of interracial killing. Okay, it's horrible. Okay, and again, when you go back go back to that first comment we're talking about, like Jay-Z. Okay, so why does hip hop, when you go back all the way, so those of you who are old enough, you go all the way back to like Run DMC and some of these like really old groups. Okay, so Run DMC, they were into hip hop and all that, but they weren't singing about killing people. They weren't singing about killing the police or attacking the police. They were not singing about drugs. They were not singing about about attacking women and raping women and women body parts and things. They were not singing about these things. They were just rapping, and it was about like life in the city. So how did it mutate into what it is today, where it's all about all this evil? Who is controlling that?
The record company, they making them do it.
Exactly. Not making them do it.
Well, not
but
making them, but yeah.
But you got the right idea, which is that if you come right now and you got a beautiful voice and you're like, I have this song that I'm singing, and I sang it in front of my neighborhood, and they all fell in love with it. And it's a song about how much I love God, and God is good, and God wants us to do good things with our life, and the children are our future, and I want them to grow up and and make us proud. Okay. And I have a beautiful voice and everybody loves my voice. They were like, sorry, sister, that does not sell. We need songs that talk about people getting killed. We need songs that talk about killing the police. We need songs about doing drugs. We need songs about beating your woman. We need That's what we need. And this has actually been tried in reality. So there's a very interesting things that have been a little experiments, social experiments like this, that have been tried. And who's the consumers? The biggest consumers of hip hop music in the United States are actually white people by far, by a country mile. They're the ones buying this stuff, and that's what they want to hear. And so that's what Jay-Z and Puff Daddy and all these record these guys that are supposedly music producers. Okay, that's what they're going out and they're finding the next Dr. Dre and the next Eminem, to sing these songs about black angst and young angst and your anger and how you want to kill people and how you want to attack women and how you need to do drugs. That's what sells, and that's what they're doing. So they don't realize that they're actually destroying their own community. They're teaching these young people to grow up with that. And that's been proven that if you teach young people, again, you look at black people anywhere else. So you look at, there's black people in Europe as well. There are people that experience racism. There are people who have had some history in the past of some form of slavery. Okay. But you find a completely different culture. Why is that? Because they're not being exposed to this made up culture. And so, and this is the concept of tazyin. Tazyin, okay? So the word in Arabic, it means beautification, to beautify something. So what it is, it comes from this ayah, okay, where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَعَادٌ وَثَمُودٌ وَقَدْ تَبَيَّنَ لَكُم مِّن مَّسَاكِنِهِمْ وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ فَصَدَّهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَكَانُوا مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ. So Allah mentions the people of Ad, the people of Thamud, and He tells us, and you have seen their dwelling places. You see their historical dwelling places that they still remain for us to see. What happened to them? زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. The shaitan, he made their evil actions look good. He made it look like it was a good thing. And in the process, he blocked them from the path of truth, even though they were aware. So when we look in Surah Al-Zukhruf, Surah number 43, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَمَن يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Whoever turns a blind eye to the reminder of the most compassionate, to the remembrance of Allah, to the reminder that Allah gives us in the Quran, whoever turns a blind eye to that, we will appoint for him a devil, and he is to him a companion, who will certainly hinder him from the right way, though they think they are rightly guided. So this is where I always tell people, I say, you know what, brother, if you know what's the right thing to do, and you know the wrong thing, don't ever choose the wrong. Don't ever intentionally go the wrong way. Why? Because if Allah gives us these trials. So if you say, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but I'm going to do this instead, inshallah, later I'll be good. Inshallah, later I'm going to repent. Sorry, that later never comes. What tends to happen is what happens here. Whoever turns a blind eye to the remembrance, to the reminder of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah appoints for him a devil to be his companion, who is going to continue to push him away from the right path. And who's going to continue to tell him, you're doing everything right. You're doing so good. Just keep on doing what you're doing. This is perfect. You are such a good Muslim, mashallah. Look at you. Look at how you're dressing. Look at all that, all that skin you're showing. You are calling people to Islam with what you don't understand. These people who are telling you that you're wrong by dressing this way, no, they're stupid. They don't know. Look at how many people are accepting Islam, but look at all these men who you got their attention with showing your skin the way you are. All these people are going to say, oh, how beautiful Islam is. He's going to find a way to make it and twist it and turn it and make it sound like you're doing the right thing. So the qareen, this devil, this companion devil, he does two things. He hinders you from the path of Allah. He blocks you from the truth. And secondly, he confuses the person into believing that he is upon the truth. He lies to you and tells you you're doing the right thing. So this hindrance from the path of Allah cannot be done except by beautifying falsehood and making it look good in your eyes. Not letting somebody realize that the Sharia of Allah, the rules of Allah, is being opposed. So man spends his whole life with this whispering in his ears until he recognizes the truth, but then it's too late. So on the day of judgment, he's going to say what? حتى إذا جاءنا قال يا ليت بيني وبينك بعد المشرقين فبئس القرين. So on the day of judgment, when that person is standing in the judgment, and then he sees everything, he sees now the truth. He's going to say to his devil, would that between me and you, I wish that between me and you was the distance of the two easts, or the distance between the east and the west. I wish I could be as far away from you as possible. You are the worst type of companion because you lied to me my whole life, and now it's too late. So Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he said, one of Shaitan's plots is that he always bewitches people's minds until they're deceived. He makes attractive to the mind that which will harm it until a person thinks of something as beneficial. And he discourages him from that which is beneficial until he thinks it will harm him. And so as a result, Shaitan has tricked a lot of people into thinking that this culture, this supposed culture, okay, this supposed culture is how you get respect. And this is how you be a man. This is how, this is the right way of doing things. So lastly, and then I gotta go because I have to pray, parenting, okay? So we talk a lot about this for the kids, but what about the parents? So the problem here is that a lot of parents today, they often come and tell me, I want to be my child's friend. And I say, your child does not need you as a friend. They need a parent. They got other friends. What they don't have is they don't have a parent. Okay? So the job of parenting is the job of the mother and the father. It is not the job of the Islamic school or any school. It's not the job of the masjid. It's not the job of the imam. It's not the job of anybody else. Okay? It is your job. And so as a result, we have to know what our kids are doing. We have to know what our kids are consuming. Okay, you need to go and pull those headphones out of your kids' ears or those iPods that you bought them for $200 and put them in your own ear and say, hey, let me listen to it. Let me hear what you're listening to here. Let's listen to this stuff together and see the shock on their face at that moment, okay? Or Dad, give me those headphones. No, 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 Dad, I don't want you to listen to this. Or Mom, no, no, no. You need to hear what they're listening to. Okay, you need to hear where your money's going. You need to make sure that when they're having conversations with their friends, that they're having those conversations in front of you. So we spend all this time working so hard so we can buy these big houses, okay? So that our kids can have their own little apartment. So they go in there, they lock the door, and then you don't know what they're doing in there. You don't know who they're talking to, what they're talking about, what they're looking at. You have no idea. And then you come to the masjid when the kid's 17 years old and he's turned into a gangster, turned into a hoodlum, turned into, criminal. You're like, I don't know what to do with my kid. Save me, help me, help. What do I do now? Like, I don't know what to do. You should have come and asked me this question 8 years ago. I would have told you what to do when your kid was 7 or 8. I don't know what to do with your criminal child right now when he's 17, selling drugs and, buying guns or whatever the hell he's doing. I don't know what to do with your daughter who ran off with her non-Muslim boyfriend. Okay? I don't know how to help you with that. I don't have a solution for that. Okay? Because it's too late. And we have to understand there is such a thing as being too late when it comes to our kids. And so good parents have to make the sacrifices, and the sacrifices you gotta spend time with your kids. You gotta be part of their life. You gotta know what they're doing. You gotta teach them. You gotta be the good example for them. Okay? When I talk to Muslim kids in the masjid, like yesterday, I asked them, who is Bilal? And all they could tell me was he's a black guy from the commandments of the Prophet. One girl's like, oh, I think he used to call the adhan. That's all they know about him. This exceptional human being, this role model for all of us. That's all they know. They just know what his race is. They don't know anything else. And that's because we don't teach. So if we spend time sitting with our kids and say, okay, let's how about this? Hey, we're gonna play a video game, me and you, for 30 minutes. But after that, you owe me 30 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna play the game with you, okay? But then you gotta give me 30 minutes. We're gonna talk, we're gonna read some Quran, we're gonna read some we're gonna learn about some of the companions, we're gonna read some hadith of the Prophet. Nobody does that. I explained yesterday to the parents, I told them, I said, there was this tafsir class, okay, that I offered people in the community, in my community. And I said, hey, there's this tafsir class. I really hope you guys will take it with your kids. Okay, it's 2 hours a week on a Saturday night. Okay, there's no excuse. You can't tell me you're working. You can't tell me your kids got to study. No, there's nothing. Saturday night is, is open. Okay, 2 hours. You sit with your kids. You listen to somebody talk about the Quran. You take some notes and you have a discussion. Nobody took me up on that offer. Not a single family of the families that come to me like, we need your help to, talk to our kids. Nobody, not a single family took that class. And I say, well, what do you guys want then? And I don't like to talk like this. I don't like to put people, I don't like to, shame people like that. But this is shameful though. I mean, how come our kids don't know anything about Islam? It's because we're not doing the effort. So that's something about parenting, and so that is the end of this program. Jazakumullah khair. I hope inshallah that you guys benefited from it. If you guys have questions, I'd be happy to take your questions, but I just need to take a minute. I do have to pray. So if you want me to if you want me to come back, I will. But if you guys are happy, I'll not come back. Whichever you want.
You can go pray, brother, and come back.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I had a question on
The outfits are so basically like as far as in the different researches that you did on like the wife beater part and the sagging of the pants, that was very beneficial. But what was I had a question on what was the part with you said the guy beat his wife, that's the reason where the name came from?
Yeah, so what happened was is this is back in Detroit in 1947. So this was a real case. It was a true crime that basically went viral because it was just the violence of the act was it wasn't common in that era. Okay, and so when this man was arrested, so he was in Detroit, white guy named James Hartford, and so when he was arrested, what happened was that he was photographed, while they were arresting him. He was photographed in this white, tank top that was stained with like bean stains or something. Like he'd been eating beans or something, and you know, so that story, so what happened was the media, that they basically were pushing this picture around, and they all put the wife beater, they were not referring to the shirt, they're referring to the man, okay, as the wife beater. And but because that image or that text was overlaid on the shirt, then Hollywood got the idea of using that imagery in Streetcar Named Desire, which was a very famous play, and remains a very famous play. And so the one of the main characters in there, he beats his wife, and so they show him in that outfit, in that tank top. And so it basically kind of took a life of its own, and it became commonly known. So I remember when I was a kid, people would call it the wife beater. And so it'd be like, if you go out with your friends or something, it'd be like, what, are you going to wear the wife beater? And so it became kind of known. And then that sort of became incorporated into gangster culture, because that was known as, okay, so he's some kind of tough guy. He's some kind of guy that, he don't take crap from nobody, he not even from his woman, that he'll beat her. And again, remember that there is this, sadly, there is this media, the hip hop music and all that stuff. It connects masculinity with beating your wife, beating your woman. And so of course there's no such thing as a wife, because hip hop culture and this type of gangster culture does not encourage marriage. It doesn't support it, or doesn't encourage it at all. And so what happens is they encourage, you're a man, you're a man, you should go out and you should, sleep with as many women as you want. And if you have kids with all of them, it don't matter, because you're not going to be responsible for them anyways. You're not going to pay anything anyways. And so what happens then is the baby daddy's beating the baby mama and that kind of thing. And there's been so many examples of that. And again, I work in ER. So my medical practice is an emergency room, and so I see a lot of this. I see and people who work in police and people who work in EMS. They see a lot of this type of stuff happening, and it's because, again, we've pushed this idea. We're pushing it by listening to the music, or by encouraging people to listen to the music, and by watching these programs, and paying money to watch, things like the Fast and the Furious and so forth, that people are, that this idea continues to grow, and all the negativity that comes with it.
And mashallah, thank you. And then also I had another question as far as in well, not really a question, it's like a comment, as far as in the fathers of the kids need to basically have like to know where their kids is, also as far as in with the mom on the different levels, the things that they're doing as well, their friends, and just different aspect of that part too. Because I
Yes.
know us women, we at home and we supposed to, know everything that our kids are doing, and like checking their friends and making sure everything around them is far, but still with the father, it takes a lot, because a lot of gangbangers, people that in the streets and everything don't have a father. So it's like a
Yeah, they
lot
don't.
of father figure.
No, they don't, and that's so this is the idea. Is that, so I mean, we're trying to do something for our communities, and so trying to create that situation, create that, so that so you look at like the Big Brothers Association or that mentoring type of thing, and so we need to create in communities and Muslim communities that have a lot of single mothers. We need to create that mentorship. That there is a male figure in the masjid that kids can go to and they can roughhouse with and play basketball with, play baseball with, play whatever with. You know what I'm saying? And that they can feel like, okay, I can do this. I don't have a dad, but I have so and so who's in my community and it's like my dad, and he like takes care of me like a dad, and he loves me like a dad. But so that there is that presence there, because even kids that do have fathers, sometimes those fathers are busy at work and they don't have any opportunity to they want to spend more time with the kids, but they don't have it. And so we need to make sure again that those strong positive role models exist in the Muslim community as much as possible for that reason.
Okay, and then my last question was as far as in what do you think as for us women too, like a little bit advice for some of the sisters out there as well?
So for the sisters, I mean, so the advice is going to vary depending on the circumstances. And so for the unmarried woman who is trying to get married, then now you know what to look for, and so you look for these characteristics, and so don't be misled or don't be misled by the culture into thinking that so and so he's a handsome man and he's this and he's that, and you want to look for a dean. You want to look for somebody. So what the best thing I ever heard on this subject was an Arabic brother who was trying to get his daughter married, and he told his daughter, he said, "This man that proposed to you, he's the very best type of man because this man fears Allah. He fears Allah, so I'm not worried that he's ever going to hurt you because he fears Allah. I could care less if he fears me or if he fears you, okay? Because if he fears me, he might hide what he's doing to you. If he fears you, he might hide something else that he's doing behind your back. But if he fears Allah, then you got nothing to worry about." And that's the thing we have to encourage our young women to look for men who fear Allah. And so that should be the primary characteristic if you're trying to get married to somebody. Does this man fear Allah or not? If he does, then I feel safe around him. I know he's not going to hurt me. And this is what happened. We see this actually in the time of the Prophet. A woman came to the Prophet and she said, "Two men have proposed to me. I want to get your advice." And so he said, "As for this one, he's an unknown wife beater." And so he was saying that in a negative way. He was saying like, "Don't marry him because he's going to beat you up." And he said, "The other guy, he's really poor." And so he basically told her, I think you should wait for some more better proposals because neither one of these is a winner. But that's the idea, is that young women who are not married or seeking marriage, they should make sure that they go when they find somebody who fears Allah, and that should be the priority. For women who are married, okay, then we want to try our best to make sure that that we're working together that they're working with their husbands, to make sure that that the bases are covered, okay. And so so don't it's a team effort, and so making sure that you set aside time that's family time for sitting with the kids and talking with them and engaging with them, asking them what's going on, having real conversations with the kids. So a lot of times what happens is like, "So how was school?" "Oh, it's fine. I'm just gonna go to my room, okay?" So like that's not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go to my room and I'm gonna like disconnect from you guys. It shouldn't be allowed. And so as I said, what we should be doing is making sure our kids, they spend a lot of time around us. So I don't let my kids, for example, go and talk on the phone on their own. Saying, "No, you can talk on the phone right here in the living room. I'm not going to get into your conversation." But I can hear what's going on. I can piece things together, like what they're talking. You can talk on the phone right here in the living. I'm sorry. Was there some feedback, or was that someone that said?
Oh no, I think it was just two mics on at the
feedback.
same time.
Okay. So that's the idea, is that you want to hear what they're talking about and kind of know what your kids are being involved in. And that can't happen again unless the family's together. And so it's really important for husband and wife to kind of, to make these plans and make sure that, they're covering those things. So those are the biggest advices that I would look at, to families. Just spend time with the kids, like get to know them, talk to them, understand what's going on. If they feel that you're listening and they feel that that you're going to give them good advice, then they're going to talk to you, and they're going to come to you and they say, I've got a problem and please help me solve it. Because I know you're not going to be judgmental towards me. You're sincerely going to try to help me. So that's the principle. We want to try to figure out how can we, attain that with our kids. Wallahu alam.
Okay, Zachary Karen. And the last one was, would you speak on this? Because as far as in the detail that you had was very beneficial, because a lot of people, we'll hear about different things, but the how you broke it down and, said a lot of people need to hear that.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question though.
Oh, I was saying that a question was basically, would you be able to break it down, like how you said the wife beater, and then the different aspect? Because how when some people hear what their kids are saying, they don't know exactly where it come from, the details behind it and everything. And the lecture today went in great detail about the thug life and the different things. So some of the parents will know that it is negative what your child is listening to. They should know, but it just gave way more detail about what's behind.
Alhamdulillah. That's what I was trying to do, because I think that there are again, one way or the other, there's still a lot of immigrants in this country who are Muslim. So a lot of the people that attend to the masjid, they're still immigrants. And so their kids are the first generation. And so those immigrants are coming and they are thinking that, well, the way I grew up back in my country, back in Senegal or Egypt or Indonesia or Pakistan, this is how I grew up, and so I don't have to worry about my kids because they're not going to do bad things like the American kids. And I'm like, you are living in you're living in a bubble. You have no idea what your kids are doing. And so that's the problem, is that a lot of the immigrant families, they don't know. They don't really understand this. And they keep thinking, like, keep putting their head in the sand and thinking, my kid's not going to do that. And I'm telling them that, yes, your kid is doing that. And these are the kids that we hear about. I mean, these are the kids that attend to the masjid. So when I go and talk to the kids at the masjid and they feel like they can talk to me, then they start telling me that, yeah, they have relationships and they're having sex and they've tried to drink alcohol and they've tried different types of drugs and, and all these different things. And of course, they're not going to share that with their parents. But these are the kids at the masjid. So what about the kids that don't come to the masjid? What kind of disaster are they living in? And so the idea is to tell parents, listen here, you need to, if you don't really know your son or daughter, then the likelihood is that they're involved in something like this. So you better get to know them, because that's the problem. And that's the whole reason why is our masjid continuously filled with immigrants. Why? I mean, Islam has been in the United States now for going on 70 years. So why is our masjid full of immigrants?
And that was all, Sister Layla.
What's that?
Oh no, I was telling Sister Layla that was all the questions.
Oh, I have a question.
But
Go ahead.
I want you guys to answer my question. Answer my question, is that why is our masjid full of immigrants? 70 years going. I mean, my parents, okay, they immigrated to the United States in the early 70s, okay? And by no means were they the first ones. The people immigrated to this country from the 60s. So we're talking about, so I'm getting close to 50, okay? So the message should be filled with people like me, right? I mean, if the people who immigrated to America in the 60s and 70s and they had kids, okay, and they taught their kids Islam, then the masjid right now should be filled with first generation Americans, right or wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so how come it's filled with immigrants instead? People
Because there's more immigrants coming over here from different places. They steady
Even if there
coming.
is, even if there is immigrants coming, okay, they shouldn't be. You should still see a very healthy number of first generation adult Americans, right? American Muslims, correct? So like me, I'm close to 50, so there should be a lot of people like me. There should be a whole squadron of people like me, I'm saying, in the masjid, raising their second generation Muslim kids in America, correct?
Correct. And
I think
I
it's a
think it's
lot.
because of this worldly life. They get caught up into this worldly life so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
I also
that's
think
what's
it's
happening.
about the Walla Wal Bara. People are losing their identities, and the new
Yeah,
people that are coming is trying to find that identity. And the people that been like Muslim all their life and been living in America are losing their identity. They don't really know who they are.
perfect. You got it. That's the problem, is that what I always tell people, I said, we keep talking like, oh, America, people are becoming Muslim left and right. Oh, mashallah, today in the masjid, 4 people took Shehata. Yeah, man, we're building more masjids, we're building this, we're doing that. And so I tell people, I said, the example you're giving me, it's like a fire hose. Okay. You know how much water comes out of a fire hose? You're trying to put the water from a fire hose in a bucket. Okay, and you always see that the bucket is like overflowing. You're like, yeah, man, look, there's so many people coming into the sun. What you don't realize is that the bucket has no bottom. So everything that's going in is falling right out. Okay. But there's so much going in that it always looks full. You see that? You understand this example? It always looks like the bucket's full because there is so much water coming into it, because so many people are coming to this country. When the United States went and did what they did in the first Iraqi war and the second Iraqi war, so as a result, we had to take all these people into the United States as immigrants. So there's all these Iraqi immigrants, and there's all these Syrian immigrants, and there's all these Afghani immigrants, and there's all these Palestinian immigrants, and there's all these immigrants from Africa that, because of the stuff that's happening, there's all these people who are coming in here seeking asylum, right? So you got, like, literally, it's like a fire hose. All these Muslims are coming to this country, okay? And all of them are having kids. But the masjid is still an immigrant place. The masjid is still filled with immigrants, because all the people who were born in this country, they lose their identity. All the kids, they lose their identity. They don't grow up as Muslim. I just went yesterday. I was during the day. I was in the graduation for my daughter. So my daughter graduated college yesterday. So I'm sitting in the graduation, and 1,000 people graduated. So there are like all these names being mentioned. How many Muslim names do you think were mentioned for people that I have never heard of them before? No idea. Like, they're not part of the Muslim community. They've got Muslim names. Definitely got Muslim parents. Okay, at least at some point in time they were Muslim, but they're girls walking with like short skirts, and and under their cap and gown and things like that, and high heels and made up, and salon hair, and this is what happens. This is what's happening, is that the kids that are being raised in this country are losing their identity, as Nortur said. They're losing it. And as a result, the masjid continues to be filled by the newcomers to this country, who still hoping that they're going to figure out a way to balance it all, balance the American dream with raising a Muslim family. And then sadly, they all realize too late. There's no way you can do that. You know, one of them is always going to win. And people, unfortunately, they choose the dunya. They choose, I want the American, I want the house, I want the car, I want the comfortable life. Okay, well, I tried to raise my kids as Muslims. At least they got good jobs. That's what people keep saying. This is the part we're missing. We don't have retention. We have very little retention of Islam in this country, and that is why. And it comes down to parenting. If we do a better job of parenting, we look and say, okay, my kid's starting to steer off. Then maybe I need to homeschool them. Maybe I don't need to be putting them in that public school that's teaching them all the bad things. Maybe I need. Why is homeschooling not much of an option for most parents in the United States?
Because they're busy working.
There you go. You want me to stop working? Is that I'm a PhD. I have this career. I have a career. You want me to stop working and sit at home and raise my kids? Yeah, kind of. Like, that's kind of like what women been doing for like the last 4,000 years. Like, I don't. Why is that such a surprise? Like, if you didn't want kids, why did you have them? You only having kids so that you can brag to people about how many kids you have? If you don't want to raise them. But that's the thing, is that we think, again, the school is going to do the job. The school is going to raise my kids. The mesh is going to raise my kids. My kids can be exposed to hip hop and just this ugly, horrific, destructive culture. Okay, this dunya, culture for 100 hours a week. But I'm going to put my kid in 2 hours of Islamic school on the weekend, and that's going to take care of it. No, it is not going to take care of it. And that's the thing, that, again, people don't want to sacrifice. And I don't say that women should be the only people that should sacrifice. Men have to sacrifice too. But somebody's got to sacrifice. That's the whole point, is somebody has to do it. Okay. And so however the husband and the wife, they decide to make that sacrifice work, the sacrifice has to be done. Okay. Somebody's got to pay attention to these kids. Someone has to say, you know what, this environment is not good for them. So we're going to create our own home environment. Okay. Maybe the person has to say, well, you know what, I don't think this is working. I think we need to take our kids to a Muslim country, maybe, and raise them in a different environment. The point being, I'm not suggesting one over the other. I'm just saying there has to be, there's no one size fits all solution. There is, every family has to have their own solution depending on their circumstances. But what's missing here is that because we want the bigger house, we want the nicer car, we want the fancier clothes, we want to be able to eat in restaurants a couple of times a week. So that as a result, those are expensive things, and we got to work really, really hard to get them. And I tell parents all the time, your kids, they don't need a 4-bedroom house. They need parents. So if you all live in a 2-bedroom apartment, okay, in a safe place, it's going to be better for your kids, okay, if you are physically present rather than being gone at work all the time. Because what you're teaching their children by working all the time is that the dunya is really, really important. This is the most important thing in life. More important than family, more important than kids, more important than religion, more important than praying on time, more important than reading Quran is money. And that's what we're teaching. So
Yes, and not to mention, many parents nowadays, like, they're just having kids to have kids. They truly don't know, like Allah said, kids are a trust, and you will be asked about those under your care. And like in my culture, most kids, like, they're the parents are having like more than like 10 kids, and the kids live in an environment that's not good. The kids don't have the proper, like, knowledge or education given to them. And not only that, like, the parents are not really in their life. You have a parent, but there's not someone you can, some students, like, and kids, like, they want to be able to trust their parents. They want to be able to come to their parents and tell them everything, and not many people have that relationship. So that's just crazy. Oh, that's just what I wanted to piggyback on what you said, but I have a question rather than that. um so what I wanted to talk about was, you talked about toxic masculinity, and nowadays we see a lot of Muslim men. It's crazy, we see a lot of Muslim men on social media who, like, strip a woman away from her rights, the things Allah told her that she can do, and they try to, they literally try to make some of the women that they marry, some of the women that are gonna marry, or just the way they talk about women, they treat them like literally dogs, and it's just so terrible. And they treat women like they're nothing. I mean, I'm pretty sure you heard them talk, and the way they talk about females, and this toxic masculinity thing is so crazy. It's gotten insane. And like, I remember there was a story about this man, and some people have heard of it, and this man was Muslim, and his wife was given birth, and he's the one that actually posted this. His wife was given birth, and so while she was giving birth, he literally he's writing this in a little short thing, right? And he said his wife was given birth, and he told her, "You got this. Wake me up when the baby's born. I'm gonna go to sleep." And that's for them, that's considered masculinity right there. And he's like, "Wake me up when the baby's born," and that's that. And a lot of men, like, confuse what it really means to be, like, masculine. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I couldn't imagine him doing that to one of his wives.
no.
That's not the way of the Prophet. So if you could please, sir, if you could, like, talk, maybe do like, not a story, but like a lecture or a class about toxic masculinity, or what it means for men to be masculine, that'd be really nice.
So as I said, it was part of what we talked about is the concept of rujula. So toxic masculinity, we have the opposite, which is real masculinity, and real masculinity is what is where the Prophet ﷺ, where we understand. So Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us, من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. So among the believers are those who have been truthful to what they promised Allah. So they said, oh Allah, if I need to fight, I'm going to fight. If I need to, if I need to defend, I'm going to defend. Whatever I need to do, I'm going to do it. And so that's the promise that they made. And so that's what we understand, that manhood in Islam is taking responsibility, primary responsibility for providing security to the society, which includes families, from outward harm. So the idea here is that men are supposed to be they're supposed to protect society. They're supposed to, be ready to defend the society, okay, and the physically weaker people, which are women and children, from outward harm. And when we look at الرجال قوامون على النساء, it was the ayah from Surah An-Nisa, from Surah number 4, ayah number 34, where Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, the men are the maintainers, the protectors of women. And so the commentary that's been given to that, it means that the men are the ones who stand up to serve, okay, the women that they are responsible for, okay. So men are the protectors of the outward, and they're also protectors of the inward, okay, or the unseen. So men have the responsibility of being gentle with women and girls while protecting them from physical and emotional harm in society. So man has to be harsh on the outside, soft on the inside. So harsh when facing those threats from the outside, he's got to be strong. He's got to be strong, he's got to be capable, he's got to be able to protect his family. But on the inside of the home, he's supposed to be soft, he's supposed to be gentle, speak gently with his wife and his daughter and things like that, not treat them bad. And again, as we said, it means that men will sacrifice their lives if necessary to protect their family. And so that's the principle, and that is Islamic manhood, and that's what we see from the Prophet ﷺ. That's what we see, how gentle he was. And so one of the funny stories was that once the prophet used to give classes to women. Okay, so one day he was giving this class to women. So he would give the women, like, once a week. He would sit with them, and they was it was an all women's class, and they were asking questions and stuff. So they were asking questions. They're being a little rowdy. Okay, put it that way. They're being a little bit loud, being a little bit, argumentative in some ways with the Prophet and being loud. And so Umar, the companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, he walked in, and Umar was, at that time especially, he was known for being a very tough man, very, very scary man. His most famous comment was, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, should I take his head off?" And so he he was always very, very aggressive. He had a lot of that kind of energy of a young man. So Omar walked in because Omar's daughter was one of the women that, talking to the Prophet ﷺ. And when Omar walked in, all the women got really scared and they all got quieted down, and some of them, they went to hide and stuff like that. The Prophet started cracking up. He started, like, laughing. And he's like, Omar's like, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, "Because they're not afraid of me, but they're afraid of you." He's not the prophet. They're not afraid of me. They're raising their voices towards me and arguing with me and stuff like that. But when they see you, and they run for cover. And so this is the Prophet ﷺ, that you could go up to him like that. You could go, you could go up to him, and that's why they said that a female servant, could come up to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him something, and he would talk to her. He was just soft. So he was gentle. He was a gentle human being. Okay. Gentle with his people, gentle with the society. So, and this is what we see in the Quran when Allah describes the believers. He says, رحماء بينهم أشداء على الكافرين رحماء بينهم, that they are harsh with the disbelievers, but they're soft with one another, merciful with one another. And that's what a man is. A man is supposed to be that way. At home, he's supposed to be gentle and kind and sweet with his wife and his daughters. Okay, but outside, he should be tough, and people should be like, okay, I don't want to mess with this guy. You know, He's somebody that who's a tough person, someone who has the ability to defend, and that's what masculinity is in Islam. That's what we see from the Quran, and we see from the statements of the Prophet ﷺ, and we see from the behavior of the Prophet ﷺ. We see this all the time. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, you did. And I guess it just goes back to, what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said in his last sermon before he died. I guess, he knew how the Ummah will be treating a woman, because he did say, take care of the woman, take care of the woman. So thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
So I have a question. So what advice do you give to one who's raising 4 boys on her own to try to prevent them from going down, that route?
So as we said, so they do need a good. I mean, so it's not in your hands, that there if there's no male figure, but so if there is no male figure at home, then you got to find a male figure somewhere. Okay, so whether you've got brothers, or uncles or somebody that can play that role from a family standpoint, or you got somebody at the masjid who can give that. You know what I'm saying? And so remember what we talked about is that the boys have that energy. So you got to get them into, so like my son, he's in martial arts. And so, and one of the reasons I wanted is so he has that outlet, what I'm saying? So he has that outlet for the aggression and for the energy and for all that type of stuff. And at the same time, the martial arts, they don't teach you to be violent. They teach you not to be violent. So they always tell you, who's the smartest guy in the fight? The guy that runs away. That's the smart guy. It's not the guy who stands around and try to beat everybody up. And so he's learning discipline, and he's also learning, again, to be tough and he feels good about himself when he's got that belt on, he's got the uniform on, he feels like strong and he feels like capable, and that's a good thing. Your boys, you want to make sure your boys have that feeling. But again, the male figure is very, very important. And so that would be my strongest advice, is to try to find somebody who can do that. So someone that they can look up to, a male figure that they can look up to as a role model, whether that be the imam in the masjid, other brothers in the masjid who are, doing like, you know, big brothers type of thing, or be teachers, that can teach them, again, whether it be martial arts or sports, coaches. I mean, you look at how many movies have been made about coaches, basketball coaches, football coaches, that type of thing, and how the boys looked up to those coaches like fathers. Those coaches were fathers to so many of those young boys. And they looked up to them with admiration. They cared about them because those men spent a lot of time with those boys. And so that's why I say, so if boys aren't interested in martial arts, get them into some sports leagues, get them into something where they're interacting with, with a male figure that hopefully they can look up to, inshallah, and that they can, they can um, have that, because the mother can't give that. Mother can give one thing, but they do need a male presence in their life. And a lot of that.
Okay, yes. Alhamdulillah, yeah, because I do notice that my husband passed away a year and 5 months ago, and they kind of bug me about certain things, and it's like we don't have that, big brother type of thing in our community like that. So that's what I was kind of wondering. I rather it's kind of hard sometimes because I don't really like to deal with their coaches, because they are in sports and their coaches are very supportive, but I'd rather it come from, the men in the Muslim community. So
You should
that's
talk
kind
to,
of why
talk to your local masjid, wherever you are. Where are you?
I'm in Fresno.
You should talk. Fresno is a big community. This is again, a lot of times, like, things aren't happening because nobody's asking for it, and then so that's why I tell people, go and talk to the masjid, go and tell them, hey, like, we need this. We need, we don't need to go take our boys to non-Muslims, for these types of activities. Like, we can do these things on our,
Mhm.
and so at the very least, what I'm saying, you can ask for that. If they're not listening to you, then what you can do is you can ask other sisters how many of you also need this, and then maybe put together, a letter signed by several of you and say, okay, we need this to happen. And and continue to kind of push for it. And if you don't, I mean, inshallah, I'll be around. I hope I'll be around the website for a while, inshallah. So if you're not getting any results 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, let me know, and I'll try to figure out some solution. Because sometimes, yeah, sometimes our masajid, they need a kick in the rear, kind of get them.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's, at least you tell them. At least you tell them. And so they right now they might be able to claim ignorance and say, well, we didn't know it was necessary, or know that anybody wanted it. But again, if they're not doing it, then there's ways that we can still figure out a way to do that. Like I said, sometimes even a visiting speaker might kind of push the idea a little bit, or might even just start doing something on our own. So we're like, Fresno is such a big community that you guys might even be able to have sports leagues on your own. And then a lot of times maybe then somebody will rise to the occasion and say, okay, I'm from the community, I want to coach these boys, or I want to be part of their lives, or I want to do something. And that's always something I really think we don't have in some of these bigger communities, is that it's sad that sometimes our Muslim kids are kind of farmed off into these leagues where they're playing with a lot of other non-Muslims, and so it really takes away. But if you had like a team that was all Muslims, and so they pray together, they eat together, and they live together. So in a sense, that's such a good environment for young Muslim men to be in. They'll never forget that, and that will really solidify their identity as a Muslim, and so it can have so much good power. But so those are all some ideas, and like I said, I promise that if Allah gives me the life and you're not if you're not succeeding in making this happen, please let me know, and I will reach out to people, and we'll try to find a way to make it happen, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. And don't get me wrong, Fresno, we do have a large community, but we do have a lot of separation,
Yeah.
So sometimes the racism thing plays a part. So,
That's the thing, is that the thing about it is that, sadly, and I think we all can agree on this, racism is typically something that's in the adults, but rarely is it something in the kids. So you see Muslim kids playing together, especially very young ones, they just play together. Okay, you see Muslim adolescents playing together. Usually they're playing together too, and I see it all the time. And I see kids in my community playing basketball together, and they're all just playing basketball, having a good old time, and they're not no negativity, no racism whatsoever. You look at their parents will be like, oh, I'm not going to go to that guy's house. Yeah, he's black, or he's Arab. Oh, we don't want to deal with that. That type of thing. And so it's something, sadly, which is ingrained in the parents much more than the kids. And if you've ever seen like a movie like Remember the Titans, that thing. And so this is not something that is natural in the young people. It's something which is something more of a decision that adults have taken. So we need to build that. And so if there is, and like I said, sports is a beautiful way to do it. And if you've got a big community, then you can make this happen. Trust me, there's a lot of times that individual members of the Muslim community have made things happen, beautiful things happen, that none of the leadership was part of. And a sports league in a big Muslim community that's got a lot of boys, it could become a great model for the future. And so, inshallah, like I said, I believe me, I would love to be part of something like that. Although I'm not there, but I would love to do anything to make it happen. And sometimes, and so we'll make it happen, inshallah, if they're not listening to you.
Okay, inshallah. Barakallah.
All right.
Jazakallah, brother.
Wayakum, inshallah.
You really hit on a nail when you said that we really need to come together.
Yes.
And for our children. And a lot of times, I'm not saying that we don't, but many times I've heard brothers say, a woman can't teach a boy how to be a man, but then why don't you help,
Yeah.
To do this, because I remember once when I was raising my sons, and I had 4 sons, and when I was raising them, and they were still boys, I remember going up to a brother who was, well known in the community, and asking him, do you know how I can find
a mentor or someone who could in the community that can spend time with the boys, like maybe sports. I even brought up sports. And the brother said to me, "Sister, I'm not trying to get married." And I said, "Huh?"
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to go there. I'm
Right.
trying to find someone that maybe they can form a team, some type of team for the boys, so they can have something to do that's positive and at the same time healthy. You know, because they weren't going to find this with me.
Yes. And that's that's where this is kind of one of the things that I've learned growing up in this country is not to depend on the masjid, for some of these types of things. Is sometimes, I will give them the chance, I'll ask them, but if they're not going to do it, then we're gonna, um, we're gonna make it happen on our own. There's a way to make it happen on our own, and that's why I try to empower people and say, hey, go out and talk amongst yourselves, and so it doesn't have to be so. Sometimes when you talk to other sisters, one sister might be like, you know what, my husband can can do this, or I have an older son, who really I think would love this, and I'm gonna talk to them for you. So when we network and we get outside, and we start talking to one another, um, give them masjid a chance in the beginning, give them a chance to to make it happen. But if they're not going to make it happen, then we're gonna do what we can as a community to make it happen. And that's where we have to work with one another. And so I may not be able to do something, but if you ask me, I say, you know what, I see what you're trying to do, and I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to go find you somebody that knows how to do it, and that's somebody who maybe has some experience about that, and get you guys together so we can network, because we are one community. So whether you're in Fresno, whether you're in DC, whether you're in Chicago, whether you're in Houston, we're still one community. It doesn't make a difference. So there are no lines between us. We should help one another, and that's what's beautiful about websites like this, is that it brings us together from very far away, and we can make things happen, inshallah. Well, I hope, inshallah, it was. I appreciate you guys' your participation and your very beautiful attention, and your nice comments and great questions. And I hope, inshallah, it stimulated a lot of thought, and hopefully something really good will come out of this conversation, inshallah. And I look forward, inshallah, to the next time we talk, inshallah.
Inshallah, and thank you for taking the time to teach us about this, because I learned a lot in this lecture that you did. And may Allah continue to bless you and forgive you your sins and make you and your family people of paradise. Ameen.
Allahumma ameen wa iyyakum, inshallah, and for you the same. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وجزاكم الله خير. And I look forward, inshallah, to seeing you guys in a future program, inshallah. Salam.